We actually have a Hakoska GTR coming to the shop that sounds like we're going to be doing a full restoration too. So I mean, I know this is something I've wanted to do for a really long time.
Yeah, this is bucket list material right there.
There's a lot of really amazing cars, but there's only a handful that I would consider to be legendary. The car we're referring to is the 70s GTR.
Why we got the nameplate for the shop is not because we're legends, the cars themselves are legends.
Yeah.
And that car had a dual overhead cam, 4-valve per cylinder, triple carb motor, making 160 horsepower out of a 2-liter in 1969. I mean, that was full-on racing.
That's amazing, yeah.
I mean, we are literally living the dream.
It's just a really huge honor even to be able to put our hands on a car like this.
All right, Josh, this is the one I was telling you about, the real deal GTR, man.
Nice.
So the plan for this car is to restore it back to the original condition. We were told that it had been restored, we don't know how long ago, and then he got low oil pressure one day. The main reason he brought it here was mainly to deal with the engine problem. But in addition to doing the motor, we're also going to be doing a complete restoration on the car just so we know that it's been done right. And the only way to really know that is to have our hands on every part of the project. Got these.
Okay.
When we go through the disassembly process, first thing is inspecting everything. Have a look.
Golden.
Yeah, that does not look good. This is painted gold, where it should actually be zinc plated. So other things like that we're gonna change. Might be heavy. So what I'm doing here basically is kind of categorizing. We're only really trying to use original hardware. So like things like the grille and bezels, they've been using stainless steel stuff, which is nice hardware, but for this car, we want it to be correct. We want all the correct hardware. So kind of categorizing what needs to be replated, what does not need to be replated, what needs to be sourced.
The GTR is the holy grail. As far as I'm aware, there hasn't been one at this point in time done in the US to this extent. You know, it's a huge honor. And that being said, everything on this car has to be period, has to be 100% correct, has to look like it would either come from that era or be original if possible.
That's gonna work, man. In this point of the teardown, you know, everything's looking really, really good, but we really don't know until we get the paint off the car and we get it down to bare metal to know exactly what's hiding underneath there. We've got everything pretty well organized right now, but what we've got to do is go through and figure out what needs to be replaced, rebuilt, restored, replated, powder coated, all that. For this 1972 Skyline GTR, we'll rebuild the motor and get the wiring back up to spec. This one is a complete frame-up restoration, which means that every single nut, bolt, and component will be restored and rebuilt, including the suspension, brakes, and undercarriage. We'll perfect the metal and body and get this car back to its original color. The GTR is the gold standard of the Skyline world. When we finish this restoration, this car will truly be a JDM legend. We're moving through the teardown part of it, but the area that we still need to address is the motor and the drivetrain.
Next thing that needs to come out is the motor, obviously.
The first thing to do here is to pull the pan and drain the fluid out of the transmission and see what we're dealing with. You're always gonna have a little bit of material, and as long as we don't see any big chunks sticking to this thing, typically we're okay.
As I'm digging into this S1E, I've noticed there's quite a bit of debris in the oil pan. Most of this material appears to be bearings. It's shredded.
So Josh has found some material in the pan, which we expected, but I did not expect to find anything wrong with the transmission. Well, I think my luck just ran out too. This drain plug does not look as good as the last one did. So that's another thing that we're gonna have to look into and see kind of where those pieces came from, because there should not be pieces in the transmission there. Let's put it this way. We saw this, we'd say, okay, pretty normal. Put it back in the car, put some fluid in it. You start seeing this stuff, then it's time to pull the transmission apart and figure out where that came from, because long story short, that shouldn't be in there.
The metal doesn't grow back.
It does not grow back.
Does not grow back. The problem with bearing shreds, you know, being such a rare crank, rare engine, is that you don't know to what degree that is, because obviously I'm not a machinist.
Ooh, well, I mean, it's not pretty, but it's also not a surprise.
No.
This is all this.
Yeah, it's all bearing
It's
material.
all bearing material. So that's the next question from here. I guess 2 questions. How bad is the damage?
Yeah.
And how far did that get to the crank? And then also, why did this happen in the first place?
Definitely. I've already inspected the rod bearings, so I'm gonna pull off the main caps to look at the main bearings, which is where I think the big problem is. Oh, there's one of the worst ones. That's where all that copper is. It's been eating material, so that sucks. We're about there on the car.
Yeah, I think we should be good there. So what we've got to do here is now crate up the motor, and we're going to send the motor out to the engine builder in California. Luckily, I've got a really good guy here locally that we're going to have take care of the transmission.
Yeah, boy. So with the motor out and packed up and on its way out to the engine builder, we only have a few things left to do to get this car ready for Mauricio. We're getting a little bit out of it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Hey. Can you push it in there? Whoa. Is that what I think it is? Holy it's all gold in there, man. That's Safari gold. I'm kind of one of the few people that really like odd colors of these cars. It's like, oh, you know, you tear these cars down, oh, it was teal. Oh, it was silver, and then white, and then silver again.
Yeah.
But no, it's, it's gold.
Cool to find that it's the most rare color of all the colors.
Yeah. The fact that this is an odd color and it is original, I think that's amazing that this is here.
Now that we're looking for it, you can kind of see it in a few
there's
areas.
some remnants there.
Crazy, man.
That's like really exciting, honestly.
Yeah.
Mind equals blown.
It's such an insanely rare color. I mean, anytime you see a GTR of this era, you see white, you see silver, occasionally you see red, and you see very rare of the Safari gold color. It's such a rare color that I think we'd be doing a disservice to do anything else other than the color that it came in. All right, man, we've got every single nut, bolt, wire, everything out of this car. Now we have it ready to go for Mauricio. We'll get it on a chassis stand, and then he can get started on stripping it down so we can get it back together again. Hopefully, you know, the metal underneath the car is as good as we hope it is.
Wow. The shape of this car is pretty impressive. I'm way stoked on it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Success.
But we don't know behind closed doors what we reveal. There you go. We'll get some aircraft stripper and we'll go from there.
All right, man.
This is probably one of the best ones I've seen. As you're peeling off the layers of it, you're kind of peeling off some history of the car and you're kind of seeing a little bit of the story, so it's kind of neat. Japanese metal is a lot thinner, so I use aircraft stripper on the outside chassis of it just to avoid warpage. Once it starts eating it, just sounds like Rice Krispies when you put milk in them. Well, this is a relief. First pass of aircraft stripper. This is an E-coat that it left it, so clearly we know we're really close to the metal substrate. In the past, we've media blasted other chassis, and we haven't had great success, so now we're taking a lot more caution on what we do. I'm stoked, because it's a good sign. Maybe I'm jinxing myself. Hopefully I don't. And here's a big old chunk of Safari orange on this side. If we just media blast it, it will work out of it. I know that for a fact. So we got half of the car aircraft stripped. As you can see, there's some spots that they have some glazy putty or filler, whatever it is. So I rinsed it, we got it all washed, got it all cleaned up. So now I'm just gonna go over it with this machine to clear up all the metal and get some of the remaining stuff that we couldn't get off. From the looks of it, it looks like we've had some patching done here. That was the reasoning behind some filler. But we don't have a perfect car, but close enough. So we'll see how we go.
So Mauricio's got the paint stripped off the car now. It's now in a bare metal finish, so hopefully he's got good news for me. What's up, Mauricio?
What's up, Eric?
Man, looks like you made some progress.
A little bit.
Good news? What's up, Mauricio?
What's up, Eric?
We're in the early stages of restoring a 1972 GTR. During teardown and initial inspection, the car looked really clean. And now Mauricio's got the paint stripped off, so we're gonna see how clean it really is. Man, looks like you made some progress.
A little bit.
Good news? We got good news?
Good news. In my history, I think it has to be the cleanest car I've ever unrevealed.
Great news. I mean, this should hopefully make the restoration go a lot smoother. Usually, when we get the paint off, it's nothing but bad news, so I'd
Dude,
be happy to get some good news.
It's beyond, like, there's 4 patches on the whole entire car.
Really?
I give them props. There's some things they've used. It's helped this car a ton.
Yeah, I mean, as far as patches go, from what we've seen on these cars in the
This
past,
is by
it's
far
like
the best patch I've ever
usually they're laid over the top.
Oh, yeah.
And then we've got fillers surround that to make it all level again. But at least they did, you know, a flush patch there. I mean, it looks pretty decent. I guess you'll know more from the inside whether or not you want to address it or not. But, you know, they also didn't get into the seam here, which is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, in this case, it's exactly what we were hoping for. So how the floor pans look?
They look great. I don't see no spot of rust anywhere.
Nothing.
Nothing. I mean, it is clean. Cars this age, you never know what to expect. It's actually refreshing to work on a car like this. Engine bay looks good. Everything in here is all intact.
At some point in Japan, the previous owner had installed an air conditioning system in the car, which we're not putting back in the car, so there's a few holes there we'll need to patch up. So yeah, we've got a couple of holes to fill as far as, I mean, but the good thing is they're not rust holes, they're just holes that were cut in for the AC line. We want this car to look, you know, just like it came out of the factory, so we're gonna make sure that all those holes are filled and that it looks exactly like it should.
I'm pretty happy with it, man. I think this is probably by far the best. Like, I can't say it enough, you know?
Yeah.
Whoever owned this car just babied it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell in every crevice of this vehicle.
This is all great news. This is what I came down to hear, so, you know, I guess I'll just let Mauricio get back to it.
I'm taking this because I normally wouldn't make something like this because I need to make sure I can access and I don't want to warp the panel. That's pretty much it, right there. So I do not want to epoxy this with all these little individual spots because the main key is I don't want to put filler in it. You got to get it to the point that all you do is just add a little bit of glaze if it's possible. The less filler it is, the better it is for me. If I can massage it with metal, I'll do it. So we're gonna start having fun and pulling this out as close as we can so we can eliminate as much filler as we can. So I'm just trying to raise all the low spots and hammer all the high spots down so we can make it as even as we can. But what this does is welds onto it and allows you to pull. See, so it just welds to it, and I just start pulling. Look at that. That's how much filler was in there before. It's teeter-tottering right there. Yeah, see the big difference now? A little bit more and we're okay. Next, I'm gonna make some small patches and fill in the AC holes. There's these holes for the AC, so I need to make a template for that. So that way we can shave those and it's clean how it should be from the factory.
Oh, like a glove, she fits.
When you weld, you're basically creating molten metal that will fill the cracks and bond pieces together. That's getting there. In this case, I MIG'd because going like this behind two panels, a little hard.
Some people think I'm just the OCD-ness is just a little too much, but the end result is amazing, you know?
So while Mauricio's got the car in paint, Josh and I are gonna organize all the parts that need to be replated. So we're gonna get our chrome together, our zinc together, the CAD plating together, so that we know what's going here, what's going there. We'll get this stuff bagged up and start making deliveries. That way, when Mauricio's done with the bodywork of the car, everything's ready to go back into it.
Down.
All these parts don't go to the same place. So I've got one spot that does the CAD and the zinc plating. We've got another spot that does our powder coating. And I've got one last stop to make.
Wow.
So what we have here is a 1984 Mazda RX-7 Turbo. One day I was sitting by my computer, got an email from somebody at Mattel. So I was like, oh, this is cool. And he had asked if they could use the JDM Legends logo on a new Japanese car they were debuting. We finally got to see the car that it went on to because we really didn't know. It wasn't that they were, putting it on a car that we had built. First one ended up being the RX-7. And we decided, you know what? I think it'd be really cool to build a life-size version of this Hot Wheels that they've made for us. The reason we brought this one over from Japan is because in this body style, they had the turbocharged option, which we never got here. They only had NA.
Well, some feel good too for the rotary fans is, this car has always started and ran perfectly fine.
That's true.
The RX-7, just the RX cars in general, were mainly meant to race. Like the first RX-3 race cars beat the GTR actually at its own game. The cool thing about this car is the interior we kind of just left fairly original, so it has a lot of cool, like big badges on the doors, say like rotary turbo and stuff from factory that are neat. Has aftermarket seats in it, but other than that, the steering wheel, it's pretty much how it would be.
So on the outside of the car, we've got our IMSA wide body kit. These were used on the race cars, so very functional reason for that, and the main reason is not only aero, but also being able to fit a really wide wheel and tire setup on that. We've got 10-inch wide wheels in the front and 11-inch wide wheels in the back. And then on the back of you've got that gigantic whale tail spoiler, which, I pulled that thing out of the box and I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. But as soon as you get it together with all the overfenders, it all really makes sense.
My favorite part of this car is just the presence of it. Anywhere you go, everybody's so interested. Even if they don't care, don't know what it is, it just looks cool.
It's a wild-looking car, but I think that's, what's so cool about it. So I'm down here at Salt Lake Chrome today.
Hey, how you doing?
What's up, Kevin?
You back to see how your stuff's coming?
Yeah.
Good.
Kevin said that I cool come down and kind of see the process.
Yeah, let's take you over and I'll show you where your parts are.
Cool, man. I'm excited to see it.
All right.
So I guess this is like a little field trip. Cool, man. This is where the magic happens,
Yeah.
huh? Wow. I'm kind of curious to know what happens behind the scenes.
We stripped the chrome here. We got the back blasted.
Okay.
We got to grind all that nickel to get all the, 40 years of garbage off of it.
Okay. I've always been one to just learn from everybody around me, so I just soak this stuff up.
And then they actually grease it. We make our own wheels. We glue 220 on there, and they use a grease stick. And they actually polish them, and then it's ready to play.
Chrome is not cheap stuff to do, and it's kind of cool to see that there are so many different steps involved and so many different people in the process that, you know, that's where your money's spent.
Right now, he's pulling out a piece out of the copper, and that's your bumper.
Wow. I mean, it's crazy in here. You walk into that place and you see these bubbling vats. It looks like something out of, you know, Batman and Two-Face. You know what I mean?
So after it gets polished, it goes into the copper, and this is actually the fill material that fills in a little more.
So the copper is the first step in the process to fill any sort of imperfections that are in there.
Fills imperfections.
It's cool to see the bumper come out of that vat of magical solution looking this beautiful copper bumper. It's so beautiful, you almost want to keep it that way. So then from copper, we go to chrome, right?
Well, it goes to nickel and then to chrome.
Nickel, then to chrome.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to come over here, I'll pull something out of the nickel and you can see
Yeah,
how
let's check it out. You don't know exactly what I'm breathing in, but it looks like these guys have been doing it for years, so hopefully I come out alive. What's the point of the nickel? What does the nickel need to be there in between the copper and the chrome?
Well, the nickel's actually the color.
Oh, okay.
The chrome is actually just a reaction on the top of the nickel that puts a hard surface over it. And then as soon as they're done with that, then they'll put it in this tank right behind us.
And that's your very last step.
Yeah, that's the chrome tank. And then this tank's got some chromic acid in it. It'll actually bubble where the bumper is and right along the anodes. And so that's basically putting a hard surface over the top of that nickel.
Okay, really cool stuff, man. Science.
Yeah. Back in the olden days, they didn't use chrome, so they just had nickel items. The material underneath would rust over time.
Okay.
So that is just a solution. So right now they'll do a rinse, and then it's the finished product.
In the beginning, you think that they just strip it off and then they put chrome on it, and that's what it is. But it's, you know, interesting to see how many different processes are involved. This is fascinating to me, you know, because you drop off some crappy parts, you get some shiny stuff, but it's really cool to see
to see a finished product.
Everything that happens behind it. Well, man, I appreciate you showing me the process, man. That's
yeah,
really
thanks
cool.
for coming in. We'll see you
Appreciate
later.
So we're mixing up some epoxy, DTM direct to metal. There's low budget on the shaker. Epoxy can prevent corrosion and to pretty much capsulize and seal the metal substrate. What you're doing is primary, is you're building up the mill of the body. You want to make it as smooth as you can so it bonds properly to the paint. And we're gonna make sure we do it right. Smooth like ice.
The cool thing is, when have you ever seen a wheel well that clean? This is 1972 GTR, that clean. I forgot how stinky this stuff is. Oh my gosh. Woo.
And all the seams, and we're putting a little thin coat of seam sealer so we can protect in this beautiful chassis under here. I feel like when you're putting the time and effort into it, I want to make sure this client is super stoked on his build. It's not fun, but if I don't address the metal substrate properly, I just threw away everything, you know? Today's a good day because we are painting the GTR Safari Gold. Ooh. You know what that means? Safari Gold, it means the golden day today. We should be having a shaker machine, but I can shake it. I guess I'm a little excited that we're putting gold down. At first, this gold, I was like, wow. But as I keep painting more and more of it, I'm falling in love with it. I think it's gonna be freaking fantastic. It's extremely nice to finally paint some color. It's just, wow. That's getting there.
What's up, Mauricio?
Oh man, scary, scary coming up here.
Yeah?
Nervous. You know how it is. Every time you paint a car, you load it up,
I
bring
know,
it up.
and that's an important one in there. I don't know who's more nervous right now, Mauricio or me. Oh boy.
Ready?
Yeah. Dude.
Man, I even got goosebumps.
Oh boy.
I got goosebumps from it, just talking about it.
Mauricio just finished the paint job on our 1972 GTR, and I just can't wait to see how it turned out. Dude, I like it. I like it. I think Mauricio absolutely nailed this color. I mean, I was a little hesitant just to do yellow in general, but I mean, it just looks perfect. Oh, it looks good inside the trailer. I can't wait to get it out, man.
See the difference on the light?
Yeah.
It's a different yellow. It's growing on me. At first, I didn't know what to think of it. As I'm painting it, I'm just like, dude, this looks like mustard yellow. I don't know what I think of it, but everything came together. I peeled off all the tape. I was like, wow, this looks really good.
This is the coolest yellow I think I've ever seen. And it's very appropriate for this era too. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like a new yellow. It looks like a 70s yellow. So we got the color mesh undercoating in here. That looks nice. We got no more holes for the AC. This was how this car looked in 1972. We did the car justice, we did the right thing. I'm excited, man. Your hard part is pretty much done, right? I mean, now it's up to Josh and I to put this thing back together again. Let's get it back in the shop and then we'll
Go from there.
start putting stuff together. These are a lot of the parts that are going back in this car that we've had all replated. Josh and I have been at work getting the whole rear subframe together. So it's got new wheel bearings in it. We've gone through the differential. Everything's been stripped and repowder coated. We've got new bushings everywhere. Every single nut and bolt, every single component has to see some sort of restoration. So we've got to really go through, categorize, and put these pieces of the puzzle back into where they go. We've got a lot of holes to chase and tap. But yeah, let's start with the hydraulics, and then we'll get the steering box in, column, pedal set, let the process begin.
Yeah. Got our IKEA instruction booklet handy, all the numbers and.
So before we get too wrapped up in all these little details, we got to make sure the big stuff actually fits like we want it to. Looks like a door.
Yo.
So you got the hinges painted, we got the hardware painted for it too, right?
Yo, got all the hardware painted.
So what I think we should do is just get it hung. We'll get it loosely aligned.
Okay.
And then we'll come do our final alignment with the
With
doors in place,
everything,
the fenders in
hood,
place,
everything,
right.
just
so
the
right
final
now, let's just
adjustment.
get it hung.
Okay. Okay, there we go.
Now, everything you pull off, obviously it's got to go back on again, and then you've got to realign every single one of those parts. So devil is always in the details. And like, this is the stuff that you don't usually see on TV or you don't really hear about, but there's so much time in just getting everything put together properly, getting everything aligned properly.
The little details. It's like the most important part of the whole restoration.
We've got our doors aligned, they open, they close, which is what you want a door to do, right? Everything's coming together.
I'm dead on that, and I'm dead on this. Good gaps. Oh, that looks good.
Well, it looks like the doors are hanging exactly like they should be. Hopefully the fenders do the same. There's so much alignment part of this that it just takes time, you know, got to get it right.
Nice. Pretty. I likes.
While they're having fun over there with the doors and fenders and all that, I'm gonna get started on the rear of the car as far as wiring and everything. The first step for me is I'm gonna put in these taillights. And then what's cool about this one is that these are actually genuine. Most of the replacements are plastic. The important part that I like to do the rear first is because when you run your wiring, it acts as an anchor point. And that way you're not just kind of guessing where it needs to be because it all runs tightly up in here. And you don't want to be 2 or 3 inches off at the end game. So I got our harness ran up kind of about where it's going to be. Gives me the opportunity to throw on these headlights. Vintage feel, better lighting. Should be able to see at night, so that'll be nice.
With all the wiring in place, this car is really starting to come to life, but hopefully we can get this gigantic fuel tank in place without damaging anything.
So should I drag it on the paint?
Yeah, drag it all the way in. I'll try to scratch it up as good as possible.
Cool.
This 1972 Nissan Skyline GTR has been restored to its original Safari Gold color.
I likes.
The wiring and panels are right where they should be.
Nice.
So now all that's left is everything else.
So should I drag it on the paint?
Yeah, drag it all the way in.
Okay.
I'll try to scratch it up as good as possible.
Cool.
The GTR's got a lot larger tank. I mean, that could be for a couple of reasons. Part of it was endurance racing. The other part of it is like these higher horsepower motors just use more gas. So it's a pretty large tank from what we're used to seeing, but it's all part of what makes a GTR a GTR.
Cool. Balance?
Yeah, pretty good. Let's keep a hand on that guy. Today's a big day for the GTR, and we want the rear subframe in place first because that will give us something to bolt the drive shaft to. Josh and I have been putting a lot of work into this thing. We've got all our new plated hardware in place. We've got new wheel bearings. We've got new bushings. Differential's been cleaned up and put back together. We're good now.
We're still waiting on our parts from Japan. We need a lot of just random suspension components and just little things here and there to kind of finish everything out, but we have enough to do in the meantime.
Okay, that's good right there.
Let's make sure that we can get this.
Just trying to get everything going up level.
Yeah.
And it looks like we're pretty happy.
Yeah, buddy. So what's cool about this subframe, this whole design was from the 73 GTR, which they only made 197 of. And that had rear disc brakes, rear sway bar, the R192 limited slip differential, all that good stuff. So that's actually really, really rare.
Not entirely standard on a GTR, but they're all very period and desirable upgrades.
And it's more rare.
From the Safari Gold color to some of these, really rare options in the rear, I mean, it all just makes it all that much more special.
Which doesn't tip back on me yet.
Oh, boy.
Cool.
Well, that went pretty smoothly so far. Now that the rear subframe is in place, it's time to give this car its beating heart. Even though this is just a 2-liter motor, it's a gigantic 2-liter motor, you know what I mean? Quite possibly the biggest 2-liter I've ever seen. So it's a pretty heavy thing, very expensive thing, going into a very nice chassis, so we want to make sure that we get it right the first time. Truth be told, this is only a temporary motor, so the customer can enjoy the car for the summer while they finish up the engine work in California. So, I think this is a good compromise. At least we have a good running motor in the car. They'll be able to enjoy it for a while. We get the new motor back in, then the build will truly be finished, but this will get us where we need to be right now.
Okay.
Okay, let's bring it down. Hopefully we don't make any more work for Mauricio in this process, but To avoid any damage to the paint in the engine bay, we're actually going to install this drivetrain in 2 parts. We're going to do the motor first and the transmission separately. Yes, I'll hold it right there.
We're clear, yeah?
Yep.
The fun part about building these cars is when you finally assemble the puzzle, and one of the most important pieces is this engine.
Get the strap off.
The other half is just waiting to be done. Ready?
Yep. Just like everything else on this GTR, this transmission is very specific to this. So it's got a specific bell housing, specific gear set, specific synchros. I mean, this was one of the first cars to even have a 5-speed from Nissan, so this is a very early 5-speed.
Ready?
I can. Didn't have to source too many parts for the transmission, so yeah, we lucked out. But I guess when I start shifting gears, we'll really know if it was fixed or not, but I'm feeling good about it. Success, man. No drama.
Nope.
Yet. All right, if I recall, Josh, these are a little tricky.
Yeah, they're fun.
And last time we had success was coming up through the bottom. So installing the header is a little bit more difficult than normal, but because this is an S1E twin cam motor with a cross-flow head, that means we can bolt the header straight on and we don't have to deal with carburetors on top. Coming in from the bottom allowed that header to go in without damaging any of the paint. While you're snugging that up, I'm gonna get the exhaust, get that ready to go.
Okay.
This is what came off the car. He had always complained about this car being loud. Couldn't really figure out why. Somebody cut a gigantic hole in the back of the muffler there. Let's hold it up, and we'll see if we got a 2-door or 4-door.
So then, of course, it is too long. So this is where our hangers are, about there. If you look up by the flange up there, that's about how far we are.
Starting to wonder if they even make a 2-door exhaust. And they send them all out 4-door, and they're trimmed to fit. This is a good period upgrade to do to it. It's still a twin pipe system. You know, it's very correct for this car. So Josh and I are gonna have to get it over in the vertical saw and try to make a straight cut.
Golden.
Okay. How's that sitting?
Pretty good.
Today was a really productive day on this GTR, but we can't celebrate yet because I'm still eagerly awaiting those parts from Japan. Fingers crossed, Customs doesn't give us any grief and we get everything here at the right time. Got some parts, finally. So after a slight holdup in Customs, our parts from Japan are finally here, which means the finish line is right around the corner. We get what we can from the States as far as, you know, bearings, seals, that kind of stuff, but a lot of this stuff has to come straight from the source.
It's our great packaging.
Ooh.
It's like Christmas, man.
Ah, what I always wanted! Yes! This one here, this is the one that was bringing us up in Customs. But we got flagged for, out of all this stuff, the license plate light, because it was not DOT approved. So we had to fill out 4 or 5 forms just to be able to get the license plate light in. At this point, I'm just glad it's all here. At least I hope it's all here. Lower arm bush, that's our...
We do have those.
Dome light. Manual regulators, right? Idler arm bushings, those are right there, right? You know, to be honest with you, I'm kind of done with inventory. I just want to start getting these parts on the car. So I'm pretty sure we've got everything that we need. Fingers crossed. Seeing the car come together is worth its weight in gold. Safari gold, that is. The easiest way to do this, I get in here with a light, Mauricio gets everything perfect, I lock down the bolts, easy peasy.
You got any last words?
I just hope we can get it back open again. It's hotter in there than you think. We've all been putting in a lot of late hours, a lot of late nights, a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but I just can't wait till we get to that point where we can just step back and really appreciate what we've done. When I first started this business, it was always like, maybe eventually we'll get to that level and we'll be able to do a GTR. We restored, you know, obviously a lot of Skylines, Z-Cars, Celicas, whatever, but never a GTR. I couldn't be more proud of how this car turned out. This car is something truly, truly special.
It's
How
pretty
many
neat,
times
man,
do we
so-
put GTR badges on a car versus taking
Yeah,
them
because
off
it's
of
always,
cars?
we've been undoing, making it custom, so
the
it's
first time we ever actually got to put a GTR on instead of taking
Exactly.
it off, right? It's something special. I mean, it's already a special car, and then you throw in the most rare color, and it's like, I mean, it's incredible. Like, as soon as we get it together, you get all the black trim on it, man, it's like, it's cool.
You know, here we are. I've always wanted to do a GTR in this color. I think it's great. It's timeless, like Werther's, right?
The way this car was offered from the factory was on black steel wheels, so we kind of went that route with it with, you know, a very period-correct wheel, and that's the Watanabe.
It's been a lot of hard work, but definitely been awesome. The final little details we put into it, it's made the car even that much more amazing to me.
You know, another thing that's really cool, I mean, at least specific to the GTRs, the bucket seats. And then the console, we lucked out on that one. That's actually a new old stock factory console. I mean, only one I've ever seen. Good God, to find a console like that, new old stock in the box. I mean, everything really kind of came together, and I mean, I love it. The GTR, because, you know, weight was everything, this car has rubber mat on the floor.
Man, that's sharp.
Completely happy with how it turned out. It's all the details, everything about it. It's just too much to list.
The rear of the car, once again, GTR badges on a GTR. That's that's nice. That's
With the
always
right
nice.
shade of gray in the middle, too, and everything looks really good.
We really tried to do it how it was supposed to be, and I hope that really shows through.
Let's see what makes a
Everything
GTR
aesthetic
GTR.
is cool, but I mean, the S1E is like basically a race motor for the streets. In '72, to have a dual overhead cam motor, 4 valves per cylinder, triple carbs, I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff.
It looks super clean.
Every restoration we do, you know,
yeah.
everyone keeps getting better.
This is the first KPGC10 restoration stateside, right?
I
far
believe
as I
so.
know. Something to be
me,
proud
for
of,
sure.
right?
Yeah, definitely is.
Bucket list. You know, just the opportunity to be able to restore a real genuine GTR and be one of the first, or possibly the first in the US is truly, truly special to me.
Yeah, man, you guys killed it. I mean, amazing, amazing job.
Well, don't give it all to us, man. It's all of us.
It's all of us, man. Honestly, I think this is probably one of the most exciting time of my life because I get to be a part of something. It's a true legend.
I couldn't be happier, man. There's so many little things in there that we really obsess over, but to me, that's what makes a difference, you know, and that is really what sets a proper restoration like this apart. You know, I don't know where to go from here because this is it for me. This car is definitely a JDM legend.